2022 has come and gone, and it was a great year for movies. Such a good year that I couldn't do a top 5, I had to do a top 10. What's good, good people? Welcome back to Whole Views. My name is Corey. Thank you for clicking the thumbnail, and today we're doing a top 10 list for the movies that came out in 2022. I don't want to waste any time. Let's get to it. Let's jump into number 10, which is Barbarian. Barbarian was a small budget, small marketed horror movie that came out, and I actually discovered it on HBO Max. I like the fact that the marketing of the movie did a lot to kind of set you up on one path, and then when you get into the movie, you have a whole different path to go down. Everything that happens about 30-40 minutes into the film is a surprise to me, and I enjoyed it. Now, I do feel like the movie really fell apart in its third act, but it was rewarding enough to leave a real good mark in my memory, given all the things that I've watched this year. And it's one of the ones that I felt like, given the fact that I wasn't spoiled, it was very impressive. So high marks for Barbarian amongst all the other things that I've seen this year. I think it stands out and is worthy to be noted. Number 9 on the list is the Roman numeral 10, X. X came out at the beginning of 2022. It is a slasher starring Mia Goth, directed by Ty West. I like this movie so much because, one, it paid homage to a lot of the old slashers and stuff from back in the day, but it also gave you a story that was intriguing with those main characters before they started killing them off and hacking them up. A greater point about all that would be the fact that this movie sets up some other movies that I kind of enjoyed with Pearl, and I think that I'm going to enjoy it with Maxine, that's coming later in 2023. I think that X did a good job with starting a little franchise, and I'm looking forward to seeing everything that we get from it. I thought Pearl was good, but not nearly what X was. Hopefully Maxine can cap the little cinematic universe that X gave birth to. Moving on, number 8 is Bullet Train. Bullet Train is one that I just recently discovered on Netflix. I knew that it was coming, didn't want to give it a chance, didn't go see it in the theaters, but I'm actually regretting that decision because that movie turned out to be very good. I like the mysteries, and I really flirted with the idea of putting Glass Onion right here in this spot on my list. But I like the action that Bullet Train brought. I like the quirkiness of it with the Japanese animation and the sensibilities that had an influence on. I like the cameos here just as much as I like the cameos in Glass Onion. And I like the twist just as much as I like the twist in Glass Onion. So I think it's just the action element that put it over the top for me and made me want to put it on this list. Like the story, like the action, liked all the characters involved. It was a good, memorable movie I'm actually currently revisiting as we speak. So there you go. Number 7 is another horror that I saw over the summer, The Black Phone. I got to see that in theaters as well as revisit it in streaming, and I really enjoyed that movie. When I watched it the first time, I walked out of the theaters and says, there's not much that I can complain about. I feel like this movie is perfect. And after rewatching it, I came to the same conclusion. There's nothing to be complained about. It was paced very well. It's really rewatchable. It has enough tension in it to kind of give you a few jump scares, but at the same time, nothing feels cheap, nothing feels gimmicky. The story was kind of moving and touching in certain spots, so it had a lot of elements that I feel like were worthy to be noted. And it could fly under the radar because it came out in that summer blockbuster time period and people might have slept on it. But I thought The Black Phone was really, really good and really well done. And again, not much that I can take points away from it from. So it definitely deserves a spot on the top of the year list. Number 6 for me is The Northman. Now this is real tough stuff because I kind of wanted to put The Northman higher, but there's also other movies that I feel like were technical marvels. This one being the first one that I can call that. The Northman was shot very, very well and in a way that's really memorable. I like the way they played the idea of mythology versus reality. I like the fact that they talk about Christianity in a way that is true to that time period where nobody really would have accepted the wild idea of God sacrificing himself for his people. There's so much that's memorable about the way Christianity was treated in that movie, as well as the action of the film. Although it is sparse throughout, it is very, very memorable and very gripping, visceral action. It's one of the ones from the earlier part of the year that when I watched it, I thought to myself, yes, this has to stay on my mind when I come to make my list because it was so stunning and eye-catching and just done in a way that was different. So really, really respect the way that thing went down. There's an action scene that really stood out in my mind. It was a long take Just really, really well done, visceral stuff. So yeah, The Northman, definitely one of the better ones, technically sound, really memorable visually, good film. Before we get to number 5, I want to ask everybody to subscribe to the page if you haven't so far. I thank you for watching thus far. I would love to get more subscribers and return viewers. Dropping comments on the videos here. Just let me know if you agree with at least my top 5, because I think my list is a good comprehensive list, but the top 5 was really, really tough. Getting to number 5 though, that was The Batman. Now, The Batman is the only comic book property that is on this list. I feel like of all the different comic book genre movies that we got this year, this one was the one that stood out as just a little bit above everything else when it comes to the way it was made, the score, and the way that the story was kind of different from other Batman stories. Not saying that it's something brand new, it's something that we all know, the stories of Batman. But the way this one was paid attention to, it kind of kept you on your toes until the very end of it, as well as having some very memorable action. I think specifically to all the nightclub scenes. There were some funny moments in there too, like with him showing up to the nightclub and just beating people up. That stuff was really, really cool. The chase scene was a technical marvel. Again, the score was something that is very memorable, even almost a full year after it being released. So yeah, I think The Batman deserves to be this high up. I really struggled when I came to picking these top 5, but The Batman, I feel like, is a good way to round out. It was fun, it was dramatic, it was serious, it was good, And also, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the things that it set up. When we talk about Colin Farrell's Penguin and his series that's coming to HBO Max, out of all the mess that is DC, at least this version of Batman and the world that they set up is gonna live on for a little while. So yeah, I'm happy with The Batman being here where it is on the list. Number 4 on the list is Nope. Nope was one of the movies that came out and some people were felt let down by it, but I'm like, yo, do y'all pay attention to some of these scenes, some of these shots? Like, so much of this movie was shot in a way that is very stunning to the eye. Maybe because people don't pay that much attention to like camera angles and wanting long takes and stuff like that. But I think specifically to like the nighttime scene where, spoilers here, but the alien is not an alien ship. It is an alien is like throwing up blood on their house. It's like, yo, this is amazing. This is amazing. I don't see how people weren't blown away by that. I felt like Nope was one of the best movies of the year, really in contention for one of the top spots. Again, a technical marvel. They did some really amazing stuff with this movie. Very, very good stuff. Cinematically, as well as thematically. I think the theme kind of went over a lot of people's heads. And that's another reason why it's in high regard for me, because I kind of called that walking out of the theater. Like, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that just don't care for it because they don't get it. So that's another thing that puts you in the top spots, in my opinion. Okay, top three. Number 3 for me is Avatar. So I just saw Avatar: The Way of Water, and I knew that it was one that had to make this list because visually they were going to do some things that were going to be different. Now, I'm not one to just like suck up to James Cameron. There's a lot of people who just bow to the man like he can do no wrong. I do feel like the story that was told here was annoyingly predictable. That's the words that I used in my review. But story aside, visually, it's unmatched. There's nothing, the only movie that I have above it visually is my number 1 movie. And that is because the technical skill necessary to achieve what they achieved in my number 1 movie is only matched by Avatar. Like those are the only 2 films that went to extremes to get the shots that we got. And I feel like those 2 were the 2 when I think about the theme of the year, at least in my opinion, has like the top movies are technically marvelous movies, like movies that did so much to bring the picture that you're getting on the screen. Avatar had to be in the top 3. And if I wasn't thinking about the story, if I wasn't thinking about rewatchability and only thinking about what you're seeing, then Avatar would be number 1. But the story of Avatar, to me, keeps it out of my top 2 because it just was something you could call within the first 20 minutes. Like, he's gonna mess things up. He's gonna cause somebody to die. He's gonna have to live with his guilt. That's probably gonna be something we see in the sequels. That part alone keeps it out of the top 2 spots for me. But it was amazing to see. Forgot that I was looking at like CG characters for a very long time. Basically CG everything for a very long time. So Number two is the only movie in my whole list that I feel like it's probably not a technical marvel. It's probably not something that people watched and thought, man, this is an amazing shot. But the story was pretty damn cool. The action was pretty damn cool. And the sci-fi present, for me being a sci-fi fan, over the top. And that would be Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It was, ooh man, it took the top spot for a long time in my heart. I enjoyed things that are like multiverse, time traveling, world hopping, just weird stuff. You get all of that with Everything, Everywhere. Like that thing was amazing when it comes to the multiversal elements present. Like the only show that ever brings you multiverse that's close to this would be Rick and Morty. I'm a huge Rick and Morty fan. If you're a freak with the channel, you'll see the watch alongs. Check those out as well. But that movie in particular for me just did it because I'd never seen multiverse done so well in live action, especially at a time where you had Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness in theaters at the same time as this. And everyone was buzzing about the fact that this movie does multiverse 10 times better. It was great. It was great. I keep coming back to the image in my mind of the sausage fingers. Like that was a crazy moment and a thing that they kept coming back to. And the movie was crazy and it's very memorable. It's not for everyone. It's probably the most niche movie on my list, but I enjoyed it. And I think next to my number one, it's the one that I would want to revisit the most. And my number one has to be Top Gun Maverick. Now, most people would look at that and say, like, man, how could you feel that way about Top Gun Maverick? Well, first of all, we can look at the box office. Audiences agree this movie was incredibly rewatchable and it was incredibly good feeling. And most people won't even take into account the technical marvel that is that movie. There are so many shots that you see on the screen and you might think is like CG and like special effects and like dust cannons blowing up the wind. And it's like, oh, they're in like a simulation cockpit. Like, no, so much of this movie is actually practically real. It's real pilots flying the planes. They are just shot from an angle to where you can only see the actors' faces. And they create the illusion that the actors are actually flying the plane. But these planes are really flying in a lot of these cases. Most of the time, and I talked about this a lot in my review, but most of the time you get these sequels that come 20, 30 years later and you think to yourself, why are you doing this? This is an obvious cash grab. Maverick was a cash grab like most of these movies are, but the fact that they did it and captured all the heart of the first one and made you feel for characters that really weren't that relevant in the first few movies. And like they bring them back around and they connect things in a way that I didn't think possible and made me interested in the movie in a way that I didn't think possible, because Top Gun Maverick was one of the movies that were coming out that year. And I thought to myself, I don't care nothing about Top Gun. Like it's not nothing to be revisiting, especially after watching the first one and then going to the theater and watching the second. Like I did not expect to be blown away, but I was blown away. And it's, again, the most accessible movie probably on this list. You don't have to be a horror fan. You don't have to be into sci-fi. You just want to see something good with some nice little action, some good acting, and something that's impressive. This checks all those boxes. It's hard to argue against it. Now, some would say Avatar is more of a feat than Top Gun 2. But I think about all the technical stuff you're seeing with the planes and the pilots and so much real work is being done there. I think that rivals like head on what Avatar did with all the CG, all the underwater, all the motion capture. So yeah, I put Top Gun above it just because it's the one that I can tell anybody. I can tell my parents, I can tell my wife, I can tell my students in the classroom, I can tell anybody who I'm talking to, you should check out Top Gun Maverick, and they'll probably enjoy it. And not just enjoy it, but enjoy something that's actually so well done. Yeah, I have to put it to Top Gun 2. Avatar, I think, could lose people. I think there are people who could be disinterested. As well as just like, who wants to commit to 3 hours? I didn't want to commit to 3 hours. Maverick, you will enjoy. And there's no time commitment. There's not a lot of things that could deter you from watching this and enjoying it. I think Maverick is the best movie of the year. That's my opinion. But let me know yours. That's really what we're here for, to start a dialogue and discuss. Let me know what is your top 3, top 5, top 10 movies of the year. And that's all I have for this one, y'all. Enjoy yourself, guard your heart, and go watch something good. I'm not doing Dragon Ball Z.